This is a video commentary on the proceedings of the May 2019 meeting of the Guilford County Republican Party. And yes, I do want to apologize to some of you out there, some of you who are loyal viewers of this YouTube channel. It's been probably about 2.5 weeks or so since I've done a video. Most of that time, the reason why I have not produced a video is because my allergies have just been driving me nuts, and that has an effect with, you know, your sinus and nasal congestion, and you get a sore throat, and your vocal cords just cannot. My vocal cords just cannot perform at as high a level as I want the vocal cords to perform, so that I can sound interesting when I talk and not sound monotonous. This is a video commentary. Now I want to go to your leader. Give me all your money and your tacos. You know, that sort of thing. But I am right now about 90%. Right now I have a little bit of some snot build up, but it's getting better. I'm about at 90% of my performance level, so I'm going to go ahead and do a video. This was the second meeting that was conducted in the David Gleason administration. Attendance was down a little bit. That is to be expected, though. When you go to as many political meetings as I do, attendance is going to have its peaks and its valleys. Obviously, right before an election, you're going to have a huge spike in attendance. Also, right before, at, and after a convention, a county convention, you're also going to have a peak. But right now we're kind of going into summer mode a little bit, so attendance is going to fall off a little bit. At April's meeting, we probably had about 100 people. I mean, we packed that hotel conference room like, we were packed in there like, I don't know, like building blocks on a Lego set or something. I don't know. It was standing room only. Every seat was taken. But this meeting, though, I actually had the seat to my left was empty, the seat to my right was empty, and I had two people sitting on the end of my row. There was probably, instead of 100 people, there was probably about between 60 and 75 people at that meeting. So let me get into the proceedings here. Excuse me. We started the meeting right, 7 right on time. David Gleason definitely does a very good job of keeping the meeting on schedule, and making sure we don't go off into some wilderness somewhere. He does a really good job of keeping us on task. First, we started off with the candidate. We had two candidates running for chair of the North Carolina Republican Party. Of course, you probably know that election will take place on June the 8th at the Embassy Suites Convention Center in Concord, just little northeast of Charlotte. The candidates that were there tonight, first off, we had Michael Whatley, and it's funny. Michael Whatley and Jim Womack were speaking at the meeting last night. Michael Whatley is what you call, he's definitely a Washingtonian candidate. He's done all his political work on the national scene, and I'm not going to repeat to you what he's done because I've said that in another video. But he's one of those candidates that you hear him speak once or twice, you already know what he's going to say. There's just no as opposed to Jim Womack, there's just no variety in what he has to say. It's always a canned one of those canned establishment RNC speeches, okay? Because you can just tell he's been around the RNC quite a bit. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but Jim Womack really has it. And, you know, I've said before and I'll say again that I am going to vote for him in Concord on June the 8th, as well as Miriam Chu for vice chair. And I'll have a whole nother video discussing the chairman's candidates later on this month, probably around Memorial Day weekend or so. Video will drop. But what I like about Jim Womack is every time I've heard him speak, and I've probably heard him speak 25 times by now about his candidacy for chairman, he always says something different, and he always says something very, very good and profound and educational. He always starts off with, he gives all his credit to his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and that's to me, that's a very, very good quality to have, not only when running for office, but every day. Excuse me. But he said, look, Jesus, I owe it all to him. He has opened up a lot of doors in my life. Amen to that. And I certainly, on a personal note, he's opened a lot of doors in my life too. He's definitely kept me, Jesus has definitely kept me sane, because my life, certainly has not been perfect. I'm 33. If you asked me at 33 what I'd be like in high school, I would say by 33 I would be married for about 10 years and have 2 kids. Guess what? I'm single, no kids, never been married. Anyway, back to Jim Womack here. He raised last year in Lee County, little bitty Lee County, $80,000, or as Mr. Womack likes to point out, the formula is $8 for each registered Republican in your county. Lee County has 10,000 Republicans. Population is about 30,000 down there. He said, look, imagine if you apply the same formula to Guilford County. Guilford County has about 100,000 registered Republicans. Times that by 8, we get $800,000. Imagine that. Yeah, 800,000. I mean, that's enough to. You could buy headquarters and rent it for. You buy headquarters the size of a super Walmart and rent it for like 5 years without having to worry about going into debt. Probably imagine that. Womack also stated that activists are the heroes of the story, and I agree with that because so many times I've seen in politics in Florida and in North Carolina, the chairman of the party thinks he's likes to beat his chest, and he thinks he's like Mufasa from The Lion King and wants to be almighty and powerful. But Womack is absolutely right that the chair has to be more of a humility is a very, very good quality, having leadership, and the activists need to run the program and not so much the chairman run the program the whole time. Said municipal elections are important, especially here in Guilford County, and he intends to, if elected as chair, to help Guilford County with municipal elections. And I would say that's great, Jim. We certainly will hold you to that, too. Okay, excuse me. Next on this, the May proceedings was probably the most important moment of the whole entire meeting. And that was Dr. Trudy Wade made her first appearance at a Guilford County GOP meeting since last October. If you don't know, Dr. Trudy Wade was a was a great conservative senator. Represented the district. It's shaped like a C. It goes from south of High Point all the way up to like where I live by Northwest Greensboro in the PTI airport area. Dr. Trudy Wade unfortunately lost last year by only a little over 700 votes. But she made a great announcement last night. She says she's going to run again. And her reasoning for not running again is very, very good, very sound. She says, basically, Guilford County is not getting the things we usually get as far as appropriations, infrastructure, any kind of expenditures, education, that sort of thing. And mainly that's because Dr. Trudy Wade got replaced by a Democrat. And as you probably know, the Republicans have control of the state legislature. When Trudy Wade was in the General Assembly, she was very, very high up in the leadership ranks in the state Senate. Now that she's not, Michael Garrett, who's some attorney somewhere, who knows? Michael Garrett is just not fighting. He's just not capable of bringing home funds from Raleigh to Greensboro. And Dr. Trudy Wade also talked about a quote from Scott Walker. A lot of what's happening in North Carolina is also happening in Wisconsin. Former Governor Scott Walker, and boy, is it such a shame that Scott Walker lost. He was a great, brilliant conservative governor in Wisconsin, but I think part of the problem that did him in is that in Wisconsin, it's one of the few states, I think Iowa's another one, maybe a couple other ones, where governors can run for unlimited terms. Scott Walker was already in office for 3 terms, okay? Not only that, but he, in 2011, had a recall election. So, the reason why, well, there are two schools of thought on Scott Walker. One is just voter fatigue. People were just, they wanted change. They were tired of, seeing Scott Walker, governor, everywhere they look, on the news, on the newspaper. He'd been on the ballot, 3 times already. But another reason was 2018 was a blue year. Wisconsin, you would like to think, is trending more Republican, but it's still kind of at that swing, that purple. It's a purple state. It's not a red state, but it's not a blue state. It's just one of those states that Trump, he won it in 2016, but he's gonna have his work cut out for him. But basically, a lot of what happened was that the Supreme Court in Wisconsin, as well as North Carolina, is controlled by Democrats. There's a the majority Democratic court is trying to put on this nonpartisan redistricting case, and Trudy Wade claims I don't think there's any reason to be any way to be nonpartisan. And then Trudy Wade really wants her seat back. But she said it might be even more difficult if the Supreme Court rules to have another round of redistricting before 2020. Remember, in any state, every year you have redistricting, but that always takes place after the 2020, every 10 years, after 2020 election, after 2030, after 2040, right? It happens between the 2020 and 2022 election cycle, and every 10 years, 30, 32, 40, 42, that sort of thing. But what I admired about Trudy Wade last night was she's a veterinarian, and she came right straight from the meeting in her work clothes. And I've seen a lot of politicians over the years. They come to these meetings, they're always dressed in their suit and tie, and they're driving their fancy schmancy Mercedes-Benz. But here comes Trudy Wade, and look, Trudy Wade is common folk. And boy, I tell you, we need more common folk in politics, don't we, folks? Absolutely. Our guest speaker this evening was Jason Ewan, who's a member of the High Point City Council, represents Ward number 6. So let me give you a quick political geography lesson about High Point. Okay, the northern part of High Point, right, just south of Greensboro, and just a little bit north between Greensboro, Jamestown, and so forth, is very, very Republican. But once you cross over the I-74 311 bypass, you really get into some rough neighborhoods, and these are very, very blue parts of town. Very, very Democratic vote and strongholds. Jason Ewan is Ward number 6, and this is a very Republican-friendly area. It is basically, if you're looking at a map of Guilford County, he represents everything on the North Carolina Highway 68 corridor from I-40 going all the way down to I-74. And if you're taking Wendover Avenue, it represents everything on Wendover Avenue from the Greensboro city limits, and it then goes west down to Penny Road and Highway 68 and the Palladium shopping area too. He's originally from Ohio. He has a career in real estate, and he is mayor pro tem, which means he's the number 2 man on the High Point City Council. But we would like to think that his number 2 position is a lot more credible than the number 2 in the Austin Powers movies. A little bit of humor there. Okay. His main, the thing that they're working on, it's interesting to point out that High Point City Council always meets on the first and third Mondays at 5:30. What also meets on the first Mondays of the month? Well, it's the Guilford County Republican Party. So we had to shuffle our agenda around last night, but I'm still very fortunate that Jason Ewan was able to make the meeting and give us a really great talk about High Point. Really, really great, good, insightful information, I would say. But at the end of that meeting that I was just coming from, the High Point City Council signed a resolution that they want to ask the Guilford County, North Carolina General Assembly members for funding to get a state-of-the-art shooter detection system for the High Point school systems. And he said that this is already used at the 911 center, and it would be a very, very good asset to have for school safety. And then he talked about the Catalyst Project, which was a huge project started 3 years ago to create jobs. And then he discussed attacking blight, getting rid of these boarded up, falling down houses. A lot of the houses are used for drug dealing and crack. And then another goal of the city council right now is how do we attract millennials and retain millennials. A millennial task force was put together, and it was discovered that 30% of the population of High Point is millennials. In other words, of the 110,000 people that live in High Point, 33,000 are millennials. Also, a new organization was formed called Connect High Point. This is young professional mentors and as well as various liaisons and presidents of community service organizations would come in and help get the millennials engaged in the community. This organization, Connect High Point, is now with the Chamber of Commerce. Okay, now we'll talk about blight mitigation. The number of code enforcement officers in High Point went from 2 to 9 code enforcement officers. And the way to attack blight is it used to be that these code enforcement officers would come out only when a resident called them. Now they actually have 9 code enforcement officers, and they drive all over the city, and they report on where blight is, and where these really ugly looking houses, and they try to fix them up. And there was an increase in the budget from $500,000 to $750,000 a year in the budget for blight mitigation. And since 2016, there's been a $2.6 million investment in blight mitigation for High Point. The next thing we'll talk about is the Catalyst Project, which the main crown jewel of this Catalyst Project is BB&T Point. In other words, this is the baseball stadium for the High Point Rockers baseball team. And this idea was not something that just fell out of the sky. A feasibility study was done to see what interest there was in watching sports in High Point, and also if there was enough people that were going to go to a baseball game in High Point. Because if you know anything about the Triad region, Greensboro has a baseball team, Winston-Salem has a baseball team, oh yeah, and also Thomasville. Well, they've had a baseball team since like the 1930s. So lots of minor league baseball, and you just have to wonder whether or not this High Point Rockers baseball team would be a success as far as ticket sales. But what I really like about, not necessarily, I don't know if I like it, but what Mr. Ewan said was he gave a really good talk of what independent league baseball is. I used to think it was actually bottom of the barrel baseball. Like, I thought you had the major leagues, the minor leagues, and then way down you had the independent league, which is like for people who were like barely making it, barely holding on to their dreams of being in the major leagues. But that is not the case. Independent league baseball, you start with your major leagues, and then you have your independent league, which is actually between the minor leagues and the major leagues. And I guess a good definition for independent league baseball is it is a rehab league between the major leagues and the minor leagues. Because a lot of times in the minor leagues you have your high draft pick players, your first and second round picks that are getting paid millions of dollars by the team, and they have to play every single day. They have to have every at bat. They're a pitcher. They got to pitch lots of innings, almost every game, in order for them to move up and have success, hopefully, in the majors. But in independent league baseball, it's the draft pick and financial thing really doesn't matter. It's whoever pitches the best, whoever hits the best, no matter what their upbringing is, they play. Oh yeah. And on the High Point Rockers, there are 8 players who have already been in the major leagues. And so far this season, and the season's only like a week old right now, 2 players were called up before the 3rd game. And one of the players on the Asheville Rockers is a former Oriole. And if you know anything about me, you know the Baltimore Orioles are my favorite baseball team, because I grew up about an hour away from Baltimore as a kid. And the guy's name on the team is Asher Tolliver, who was a left-handed pitcher. He pitched for the Orioles about 3 or 4 years ago, and was also with the the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. That's the right word. he played with those two teams, and now he's with the High Point Rockers. So look for Asher Tolliver if you're at a High Point Rockers game. Okay, so then Mr. Ewan talked about how this Catalyst project, how it started. The thing was that over the last like 50 years or so, the furniture market has really taken over the downtown of High Point. And the furniture market, they own the zoning laws. So what had to be done to make the ballpark work in downtown High Point is they had to have an MXD district, a mixed use district that disallows furniture showrooms in High Point. What they have created was there was a $60 million property value of the showrooms, and they created that into 24/7 use of office space and retail space. And later this month, the city is going to break ground on an $80 million office building that is going to be right behind the BB&T Point baseball stadium. And also, don't forget, there's a convention center that's going to come to High Point, as well as a children's museum, too. Okay. The capacity of the stadium, they have 3,400 fixed seats, but they can actually extend that to 5,500. But the first night, this was last Thursday night, which was like the... What day was that? Like the 1st or the 2nd, something like that, of May. Standing room only, sold out. But it's interesting to note that the Mr. Ewan said that in the 3 years he's been on the city council, you know, when he first was on the city council, there was like no pedestrians downtown. And now he's actually seeing a lot more pedestrians downtown, and that's you know, and that's only the beginning, because the downtown is not even fully developed yet, because you still have the convention center, the children's museum, as well as all the mixed-use development that is still percolating. Next thing Mr. Ewan talked about was the first election to 4-year terms. This I'm not a big fan of. They just started this in Greensboro on their city council in 2017 to 2021. You know, I think that's way too long to be on city council, because a lot of times voters are going to forget stuff. Like if you build an apartment complex on a busy road and you get inundated with complaints, and it's a 4-year term, and you're the council person, you know, you're not going to, people are going to forget about it. But if it's a 2-year term, they're probably not, and then they can vote you out, you know. So, not a big fan of the 4-year terms, but it should be noted that this is going to start after the 2019 election. So the next time High Point's going to be up for election after this November is in 2023. In 2019, you're going to have all 9 seats of the city council up. You're going to have Mayor Jay Wagner, who's a Republican, who's going to go up against 2 Democrats, okay? The breakdown of the city council board: 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, 2 independents. One of the independents is a closet Democrat, and one independent is a closet Republican. So it's fairly evenly divided. However, Mr. Ewan wanted everybody in the audience to know that the Democrats are not far left socialists. They're actually fairly reasonable, fairly easy to get along with. And he wanted everybody to know that, look, he heard a quote years ago that says there's nothing Republican or Democrat about water or sewer or trash removal. Okay? As far as finding candidates, most of the district you find candidates, but remember that district Ward 1 and 2 of High Point are very, very blue. Okay. Right. Okay. And then we hear from fellow High Point Councilman Victor Jones. Answered the question about term limits from a member of the audience. According to the North Carolina state statute, you cannot have term limits, and that's kind of a, whew, oh, really? I'm a big fan of term limits, and I hope someday North Carolina does have term limits. I think they actually do have term limits. Well, at the state level in Florida, they do. At the county level, it goes from county to county, sort of thing. Some counties have term limits, some counties in Florida do not. But North Carolina, you cannot have term limits at any level of government. It's really ugh, you know. But then Victor Jones said, look, if we want to get Greensboro back in Republican hands, or at least get, right now it's 9-0 Democrat in Greensboro. It's left. If you want to at least get a couple conservatives back in city council, we really have to show Greensboro High Point is doing, as far as economic development. He says High Point, every weekend you cannot find a parking space downtown. It's booming. Most restaurants, there's a 45-minute to an hour wait. And it's interesting to note that most of the people that are in downtown High Point are not coming from Winston-Salem, they're not coming from Greensboro. They're actually citizens of High Point. And he said it's nice to see people take pride in their community. Okay, now on to more of the party stuff. Okay. First Vice Chair Chris Meadows talked about our progress on, instead of meeting at a hotel conference room every month, to get headquarters back up and running. They looked at a couple sites, but they're very expensive. One is near where we used to meet, which is at the intersection of I-73 and Gate City Boulevard. Another one's on Wendover Avenue near CarMax. It's 2,600 square feet, so it's plenty of room, but it's very expensive. There were two options on the table that were up for a vote last night. One was option A. It says we get a small space, pay no more than $1,800 a month for rent, and have our meetings at different locations every month around the county. I thought this was a very good proposal. We had this in this was similar to what we had in New Hanover County when I was there, except, well, they always had the meetings at Jungle Rapids, second story, but we had a separate headquarters from the meetings. But then there were a couple of points. One was some former Sheriff B.J. Barnes, who says we really need to put some thought into traffic, parking, and that sort of thing. And if we have our meetings, at different places that are not our own, like if we, hotel conference room, I can tell you it took a really long time. It took longer for me to get a right turn on Wendover at 9 o'clock at night than it did driving 10 miles home via I-40 and I-73. Okay, so you have to look at that. But if you share a restaurant, you have to look at parking is a big concern, and then traffic, and then another argument for option B. Option B is, say we pay over $2,000 a month, but we have a big space where we can have meetings and our various day-to-day office functions. But the other argument for option B was, let's say we get Vice President Mike Pence wants to come to Greensboro. Okay, his staff is going to want to come to a big space, a very GOP friendly space. He's not going to want to come to a restaurant, So I went with option B, and it was a landslide. It was probably like a 65-5 vote or something in favor of option B. Okay, now we hear from Second Vice Chair Alyssa Batts, who is in charge of social media and technology. Couple things she's created. She's created two calendars here with the county GOP website. One has all the dates, but fun things like we have Mother's Day, we have National Hamburger Day, National Biscuit Day, National Creativity Day. And then another calendar that she's created is one that has all the political events on there, when our next, county meeting is, when, various commissioners are having meet and greets or town hall meetings, that sort of thing too. And then she shares some stats on social media, how our Facebook traffic is up, Twitter traffic is up, and Instagram traffic is up as well. Victor Jones, City Council High Point, also said that putting town hall meetings on the calendar are very important. He also says it's very important to go to a town hall meeting, especially if it's in a very blue part of town. It's good. It's important for Republicans to show up anywhere and be able to defend their fellow Republican elected officials, as well as to defend their own viewpoint and stand their ground. And then we heard from Paul Daniels, third vice chair in charge of precinct organization. A lot of that stuff is, what precinct chairs should be doing. They should be going to the precinct organization part of the website and getting their work done as far as identifying voters and so forth. Okay. Announcement time. If you're a guy, or even if you're not a guy, try to go to the NC Federation of Republican Men on May 18th. It's going to be at the NC GOP headquarters in Raleigh. Starts at 10 in the morning, ends at noon, approximately. They're going to have lunch afterwards. I have no idea where they're getting the lunchroom. It better not be Jimmy John's, so I'm not going, though. I have family coming to town. I will not be going, but still, hopefully it's not Jimmy John's. Hopefully it's some a little bit more manly, like Bojangles or Chick-fil-A or something like that. Come on, man, It is $25 to attend. Look, I think the NC Federation of Men can be a good asset to the party. It's just, I just paid them $25 like back in February, and now I got to pay another $25 I want to go to the convention. The money thing, it's getting a little out of control over there at the NCFR Men, I would say. A little bit. Not totally, but a little bit. But the focus, according to Lee Haywood, who is on the executive board of the NCFR Men, their focus is really going to be on council state races as well as judicial candidates. Okay. Another point of the announcements was we had 4 people who were from the High Point University College Republicans. And it's always good, even a right-leaning Christian university like High Point University. Still, any college, it's good to see a college Republicans group. Even better is when they come to the county GOP meeting. It's really awesome. Finally, Alyssa Batts is also president of the Guilford County Young Republicans. We're going to have a meeting. I will be there too. I might even do a blog post about it, because we're going to have representatives from the Civitas Institute come. And if you know anything about the Civitas, they always have a wealth of information to share about state politics. That is going to be at the Kickback Jacks on New Garden Road. It's going to begin at 7 p.m., but social time begins at 6:30, Tuesday, May 14th. Mark your calendars. Okay, so this meeting adjourned at 8:38 p.m., so the meetings in April and May, they both have been right around an hour 35 to an hour 40 minutes. The goal was to get out at 8:30, but hey, 10 minutes over, not too bad. Another good, well-organized meeting put on by David Gleason and his executive board team. My compliments to the chef. For the Conservative Pelican, I am Bobby Crawford. Have a great day.